Up until the 19th century, ideas from ancient Greek medicine still were current, were used in medicine in the Western world. The Greeks were, again in the Western world, were among the first to take an empirical approach to curing a sick human being. Hippocrates, an ancient Greek physician and medical writer, born perhaps around 460 BCE, whose name appears on a series of ancient texts called the Hippocratic Corpus. Corpus, means body. Written in the 4th and 5th century BCE. These are very early medical texts that are the earliest medical texts in the history of medicine in the Western world. And Hippocrates, though we don't even know, we don't really know much about him. He may not have been one person, in the sense that the texts in the Hippocratic Corpus were not all written, it seems, by the same person. Another famous figure, some other famous figures in ancient Greek medicine include the philosopher and natural scientist Aristotle in the 4th century BCE, before the Common Era. Aristotle made observations about animals, about anatomy, along with his observations about politics. And another famous ancient physician is Galen, who was a doctor under the emperors in the Roman Empire, lived around the 2nd century CE, or Common Era. So these ancient doctors, again, gave us ideas, including that, before Hippocrates and these ancient Greek physicians, disease was thought of as something that happened for causes that couldn't be explained. It happened because maybe one had made the gods angry. That happened for irrational reasons. So what ancient Greek medical practitioners introduced was the idea that disease could perhaps be something that was a normal process that befell one, that being sick, for instance, having a fever, was not an illness in itself, but maybe part of a larger illness. And also ideas such as that, one had to observe and look at other kinds of causes, namely physical ones, that were the reasons for someone becoming sick. In other words, by physical ones, I mean looking for reasons for someone becoming sick that didn't have to do with, for instance, making the gods angry, maybe by, conducting a sacrifice that didn't go well with an animal or something like that. Before Hippocrates, such what we would consider highly irrational and superstitious ideas were thought to be the reasons for people becoming sick. We've learned the word physis, meaning nature. And it does give us the ancient word for physician. So in other words, a medical doctor in the ancient world, he is, he's not, he is someone who has some knowledge or has some kind of relationship or experience of looking at nature, at, the way things grow and are in the world to figure out the causes of things. Just wanted to mention some of the background about ancient medicine as we move forward in our course on medical terminology. This week, week 6, is the last week we'll spend specifically devoted to studying ancient Greek roots of words. Next week will be the midterm, and after that we'll start looking at another ancient language, Latin, and how it's contributed to ancient medical vocabulary. One thing to keep in mind with the ancient Greek roots of words is that a scientist, a philosopher like Aristotle, was very concerned about classification. So one thing that the ancient Greeks have also given to us, aside from some of these very early ideas about treating disease as something that arrives and as not because one has made the gods angry, that there's a rational cause for a disease, is the idea, of course, of classification. And therefore of classifying the parts of the human body. That means naming the parts of the human body. And that's one reason why so many of our medical terms really do come from ancient Greek. As we'll see when we start looking at the Latin roots of words, some of the words that we use come from ancient Greek, but they've gone through Latin, which affects things like their spelling. So please look on the Sakai site a little later this week. I'm putting together a handout that will have list some of the medical terms you've learned. Some of the medical terms you've learned perhaps look like other of the medical terms we've learned. By this, I mean we've learned this word cal means a hernia or a swelling. Well, this week we're also learning a word kale, which means a lip. There are reasons that, those words seem, rather similar to us in English, but they're very different in ancient Greek. Another word, for instance, is also this word cow. And that means the abdomen. So I'm going to be putting together a handout that puts together some of these words that look an awful lot like each other in English, but that are very different in Greek, as a way to help you studying for the midterm and to, maybe getting a little bit of a grasp on all of this vocabulary that you have been doing a great job at learning over the past couple of weeks. So good luck, in working on this week's assignments. Email me with any questions, and keep an eye out for the handout.